I first read The Godfather all the way back in high school, and it was my favorite book then as it still is today. As great as the film is, there are things in the book that clarify things that the film leaves out, such as the scene where the Don calls the truce to ensure Michael's safe return to America after being exiled to Sicily for murdering Sollozzo and police captain McCluskey. The film, for length and budget considerations, does not explain how the Don engineers Michael's return to America. Remember, Michael is guilty of murdering a police captain, making him eligible for the death penalty. Here is how the Don was able to pull this off. There is a young man named Felix of the Bocchicchio family, which is different from the other families in the respect that their family's trade is providing hostages to the other New York families as pledges. Disagreements among the various families are ensured by bocchicchio hostages. If one side fails to honor its part in this type of negotiation, the offended family kills its bocchicchio hostage. The bocchicchio clan would then turn its wrath on the family that broke the pledge and not the family that killed its hostage. This is how the bocchicchios get paid. But Felix Bocchicchio is different and believes that he possesses enough intelligence to survive without his family, similar to Michael Corleone's position prior to murdering Sollozzo and the police captain. Felix attends law school, marries a white woman, and after getting his law degree and having difficulty finding work, gets himself involved with a friend who works at a prestigious law firm. This friend asks Felix for a favor, for Felix to use his law skills on a complicated bankruptcy scam. There was a 1 in a million chance of getting caught, this friend promises Felix, but when Felix does get caught, his two accomplices, both white males, testify against him and receive reduced sentences by telling the court that Felix, preceded by his family's violent reputation, strong-armed them into going along with him. Felix gets a 5-year prison sentence. As soon as he gets out of prison, he gets a gun, finds the two men who framed him, both at the time eating in a restaurant, and blows their brains out. Felix waits on the police to arrive at the scene, confesses to the murders, and goes to trial where he is found guilty and sentenced to die in the electric chair. A family member goes to the Godfather for help, and afterwards the Don sends his lawyer Tom Hagen to the prison to make Felix an offer, to see to the comfort of his widow and the education of his children in exchange for him confessing to the murders of the police captain McCluskey and Virgil Sollozzo, both of whom Michael had killed. Felix confesses to everything with details Hagen provides him. Once the switch is thrown and Felix dies, the Don sends word to Sicily for Michael to return home to America. There are other interesting scenarios in the book that the film leaves out, but overall the film is pretty faithful to the book. Both Mario Puzo, the book's author, and Francis Ford Coppola co-wrote the script separately and later together, incorporating elements that worked and leaving out elements that didn't work. The sequel cannibalized off elements in the book that weren't used in the first film, such as Don Corleone's backstory, including him as a small boy fleeing Sicily and his pre-Don existence as a grocery store clerk and the chain of events that lead to him becoming a Don. Elements new to the sequel that did not come from the novel are the storylines involving Jewish mobster Hyman Roth and Fredo's assassination. When I look at how great The Godfather is, it is hard to imagine that at the time the film was being produced, the studio considered getting Cazale to direct it instead of Coppola, because the studio was concerned about whether Coppola, a young and inexperienced director at that time, could handle a film with The Godfather's $7 million budget, which was a fortune at that time. Cazale is a great director, directed some of the greatest films ever, but I wonder how committed he would have been as a Greek in preserving the integrity of the Corleone family's Italian casting, with the exception of James Caan, who is Jewish. Producer Robert Evans' hiring of Coppola came out of his desire to make The Godfather ethnic to the core. It's also hard to imagine how The Godfather would have been with Laurence Olivier playing the Don instead of Marlon Brando. Olivier was considered for the role but turned it down to star in Sleuth, which came out the same year as The Godfather in 1972. From the outset, Mario Puzo had Brando as his pick for the Don, who may not have gotten the part had Olivier accepted it. The studios were reluctant to hire Brando due to the man's temper and him coming off a couple of unsuccessful films. It's also hard to imagine how the film would have been had James Caan been cast as Michael Corleone instead of Al Pacino. Originally, Paramount did not want Pacino playing Michael because they thought that he was too short. But again, Coppola was able to get Pacino the role, who the director felt looked Sicilian. Even after almost 50 years, The Godfather still ranks as the best film of the gangster genre, and one of the best films, if not the best film ever made in many polls. When I think of gangster films, my all-time top three are The Godfathers 1 and 2 and Sergio Leone's 1984 epic Once Upon a Time in America. If I had a top four, I would include Scorsese's 1990 film Goodfellas. I've had The Godfather on DVD for a while and just upgraded to Blu-ray, and to be honest, the picture and sound quality are identical, unlike the sequel, which is a definite improvement on Blu-ray. Thanks for watching this video review of director Francis Ford Coppola's 1972 film, The Godfather, starring Al Pacino, Marlon Brando, and James Caan. If you like this video, I would appreciate a thumbs up and also a comment, and most of all, I would appreciate if you would subscribe to this channel for more quality video reviews such as this one. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.
This is business, not personal.
I will not be the one to break the peace.
Do you renounce Satan?
I do renounce him.
Thanks for watching my analysis of director Francis Ford Coppola's 1972 American crime film, The Godfather, co-written by the director and Mario Puzo, and starring Diane Keaton, Robert Duvall, James Caan, Al Pacino, Talia Shire, John Cazale, Abe Vigoda, Al Lettieri, and Marlon Brando in the title role. If you are new to the channel, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to The Godfather of Cinema. Movie reviews and more. Give this video a thumbs up, hit the bell, leave a comment, and a small donation if you like this video and would like to help me to do more like it in the future. In this presentation, I will examine key moments in the plot of Francis Ford Coppola's 1972 film, The Godfather, using precepts from Sun Tzu's The Art of War and the Holy Bible. The Godfather opens with Don Corleone hosting his daughter's wedding. According to Sicilian custom, a Don cannot refuse any reasonable request on the day of his daughter's wedding. A mortician named Bonacera stops by on this festive occasion to ask the Godfather to commit murder. His daughter's white boyfriend and his friend, also white, had taken her for a drive, had given her whiskey, and had tried to dishonor her, but she refused, and they beat her and broke her jaw. The Don is insulted by Bonacera's request on his daughter's wedding day.
But you don't ask with respect.
But after the mortician humbles himself and shows the proper respect,
Godfather.
the Don grants his wish. He will make those men that assaulted Bonacera's daughter pay for what they did, but he will not murder them. Family and marriage are extremely important to God, so this film opening with a wedding is not a coincidence. Don Corleone has three sons, Fredo, Sonny, and Michael. Santino, or Sonny, is the oldest and next in line to take over his father's empire, but is also hot-tempered.
Come here.
And an unfaithful husband. And as God himself insists on complete fidelity, so does the Godfather, who frowns upon Santino's affair with the bridesmaid at his daughter's wedding. Now, Fredo, the middle son, has a good head for business, but is weak when it comes to alcohol and lacks the masculine force essential for a Don.
I can handle things. I'm smart.
And Michael, the youngest son, has all of his father's intelligence, discipline, and force. He'd make the perfect successor, but wants nothing to do with the family business and to distance himself further from it and his father. He joins the army and dates an American white woman instead of a Sicilian woman. Nevertheless, the Godfather, though disappointed by this rebellious son, is patient with him.
But don't ever take sides with anyone against the family again.
An up-and-coming figure in the New York underworld named Virgil Sollozzo meets with the Don to talk business. Sollozzo wants to sell drugs and needs access to the judges and prosecutors under the Don's control in order to ensure that his men will keep their mouths shut when they get caught. The second favor he needs from the Don is $1 million in cash. In return for these favors, Sollozzo promises the Don a return on the $1 million. The Don turns down Sollozzo's proposal. However, Sonny is also in this meeting and perks up at Sollozzo's deal and interrupts the Don.
Guarantee our investment.
Without forethought nor respect for protocol. And although Sonny is able to catch himself quickly, after realizing his mistake, it is too late. Sollozzo spots this hair-thin crack in the armor of the Corleone family and files it away for future reference. In this scene, Sonny violates the following warning by Sun Tzu from The Art of War in Chapter 6, Weak Points and Strong. In making tactical dispositions, the highest pitch you can attain is to conceal them. Conceal your dispositions, and you will be safe from the prying of the subtlest spies, from the machinations of the wisest brains. In opposing his father openly, Sonny has planted the seed to murder the Don in Sollozzo's mind. It has been many years since the last war between New York's 5 families, and since that time, the Don has become lax in taking precautions against his enemies and protecting himself. So, shortly after turning down Sollozzo's proposal, the Don does something very foolish. He has his son Fredo to drive him to an outdoor market to buy some fruit. Now, the Don's regular driver, named Paulie Gatto, called in sick for the 3rd time in a month, and on this occasion, when he calls in sick, the Don is ambushed and shot 5 times. Fredo is unable to get a single shot off.
I can handle things. I'm smart.
But a seasoned soldier like Paulie Gatto would have had the composure to shoot one of the gunmen at least. Very convenient that Paulie Gatto just happens to fall ill on this day. Again, Sun Tzu's warning from The Art of War in Chapter 9, The Army on the March. The sudden rising of birds in their flight is the sign of an ambush at the spot below. Startled beasts indicate that a sudden attack is coming. The Don was warned by his lawyer, Tom Hagen, that saying no to Sollozzo's proposal would mean trouble. The Don heeded this warning by putting his meeting with Sollozzo off until after his daughter's wedding. And as Hagen also pointed out to the Don, there is too much money to be made selling drugs, as Sollozzo wants to do.
There's a lot of money in that white powder.
The other families also want in on this action, which isolates the Don, who doesn't care for drugs at all. Here, the Godfather violates 2 of Sun Tzu's precepts from The Art of War. First, chapter 8, variation of tactics. When in difficult country, do not encamp. In country where high roads intersect, join hands with your allies. Do not linger in dangerously isolated positions. The Don had encamped in difficult country by leaving all of his businesses, including himself, unprotected and accessible to his enemies. The Don's second mistake, according to Sun Tzu, in times of peace prepare for war, in times of war prepare for peace. The long years between wars had made the Don soft.
10 years ago, could I have gotten to him?
Sollozzo had used this long period of peace and complacency against the Don. Also, this scene of the Don getting shot while buying fruit foreshadows later scenes in the movie by showing the yin and yang relationship between life and death. Note how the Don, after being shot 5 times, is surrounded by fruits and vegetables, or life. A scene that is almost identical to the scene later in the film in which he dies in his own garden surrounded by life. After attempting and failing to kill the Don, Sollozzo seeks a truce with Sonny.
Sonny was hot for my deal, wasn't he?
Sollozzo must make another attempt to kill the Don. However, he won't have the element of surprise in his favor. The following precept from Sun Tzu's Art of War in chapter 10 on terrain. Ground that can be abandoned but is hard to reoccupy is called entangling. From a position of this sort, if the enemy is unprepared, you may sally forth and defeat him. But if the enemy is prepared for your coming and you fail to defeat him, then return being impossible, disaster will ensue.
Trust me, that's all I can tell you about my business.
Michael Corleone goes to see his father at the hospital. All of the men assigned to protect his father there have been taken off of their detail. Michael and a nurse moves his father's bed to another room because whoever took away the security detail was setting his father up to be killed. Note how the Don is completely vulnerable in this scene, unable to protect himself, completely powerless. A visitor stops by the hospital with flowers named Enzo, who had heard about the shooting and came to show his respect and gratitude for the Godfather's help in keeping him from being repatriated back to Italy. He and Michael stand guard in front of the hospital like scarecrows.
Put your hand in your pocket like you have a gun.
A carload of men cruises by slowly. Michael is as unarmed and vulnerable as his father in his hospital bed, and the car drives off quickly. The perfect example of the book of Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 1, which says that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Because we see first the Don, powerless in his bed in the hospital, stripped of all protection, being protected by his son Michael, who just happens to stop by to see him at the precise time that Sollozzo's killers arrive to finish him off. When Michael kisses his father and tells him that he is going to be okay, the Don's smile conveys his faith or belief in his son's promise that he will be okay. Michael's faith kicks in through the act of faking like he has something that he does not have, which is the essence of faith, or believing in something that isn't real as though it is real. To further reinforce this point, when the car speeds away from the hospital, Michael's hands are steady as though he knew everything would turn out okay, unlike Enzo's hands, which are shaking.
You did good.
John chapter 1 and verse 29. The next day John saw Jesus coming toward him and said, "Look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." Instantly, a dirty police captain on Sollozzo's payroll named McCluskey pulls up to the front of the hospital and hops out of his patrol car so angry that he has 2 officers to hold Michael's arms.
Stand him up.
Then McCluskey punches Michael in the jaw. breaking it, and Michael completes his orbit. From Army veteran and war hero to private citizen and civilian to an active participant in Sonny's plan to kill both Virgil Sollozzo and his bodyguard, Police Captain McCluskey.
You're taking this very personal.
For Michael now sees the hypocrisy of America in that she can be bought and paid for with drug money, as symbolized by McCluskey's and Sollozzo's relationship. But paradoxically, their relationship is a reflection of his relationship to his father, who is also invested in illegal activities. So it comes down to a choice: to be part of a world in which he isn't respected and even despised and walked on, or to be part of a world in which a man like his father is respected,
Godfather,
and controls his own destiny. A world in which he isn't a puppet dancing on someone else's strings, as he had been as a U.S. soldier fighting wars on behalf of the military-industrial complex. Michael's decision to murder the police captain and Sollozzo is a crossroads that sets him on the path to his ultimate destiny. Like Jesus, Michael and his innocence up to this point represents the sacrificial lamb and the perfect choice to negotiate a truce with Sollozzo, in that he is a civilian and not of the world, figuratively speaking, or directly involved in family operations, and is therefore the spotless lamb or perfect agent to take away the sins of the world by eliminating Sollozzo and McCluskey together. Michael guns down Police Captain McCluskey and Virgil Sollozzo immediately. Sonny sends Michael to Sicily and places him under the care of a Don indebted to the Godfather, Don Tomasino. On a Sicilian countryside, a shepherd leads a herd of sheep downhill as Michael and two shepherds, his bodyguards, move uphill in the opposite direction. This is Don Corleone's native country, and it is here that Michael discovers a beautiful young woman, a virgin named Apollonia, and he is struck by what Sicilians call the thunderbolt, which causes him to forget about the danger he ran away from in America, as well as his girlfriend Kay. One day, Sonny visits his sister Connie, and seeing her with a black eye, he finds Carlo Rizzi, her husband, and beats him up publicly. The same inability to manage his impulses which drove him to have an affair, that drove him to oppose his father in front of Virgil Sollozzo, this same powerlessness over his own flesh now drives Sonny to play into the hands of their enemies. Following the assassination attempt on the Don, Sonny had ordered the family's button men to go to the mattresses for war against the Tattaglia family, whom he suspects is behind the assassination attempt. To equalize the attempt on the Godfather's life, Sonny had ordered the hit of the eldest son of the Tattaglia family, Bruno, who had invited Luca Brasi to his nightclub and executed him with Sollozzo's help. Since then, Sonny has been under lock and key in the Corleone compound, occasionally venturing out with bodyguards to see his mistress, Lucy Mancini. Brazenly, as if to defy Sonny for beating him publicly, Carlo Rizzi beats Connie with a belt.
Get out of here!
She also happens to be pregnant again. Sonny flies into a rage and out of the compound to straighten Carlo out, but this time he is intercepted at the toll booth on the Jones Beach Causeway and gunned down. One of the gunmen even kicks him in the face so that he can't have an open casket funeral. Sonny's downfall in this scene is explained by Sun Tzu in The Art of War, Chapter 9, The Army on the March. He who exercises no forethought but makes light of his opponents is sure to be captured by them. Also, Chapter 1, Laying Plans. If your opponent is of choleric tempered, seek to irritate him, pretend to be weak that he may grow arrogant. It also never occurred to Sonny that the so-called fights between his sister and her husband Carlo were orchestrated to smoke him out of the compound where he was safe. Sun Tzu's Art of War, Chapter 6. Weak points and strong. If the enemy is taking his ease, harass him. If quietly encamped, force him to move. If well supplied with food, starve him out. Appear at points that the enemy must hasten to defend. March swiftly to places where you are not expected. Also, if we wish to fight, the enemy can be forced to an engagement even though he be sheltered behind a high rampart and a deep ditch. All we need do is to attack some other place that he will be obliged to relieve.
Get out here!
If the enemy is the invading party, we can cut his line of communications and occupy the roads by which he will have to return. Art of War, Chapter 11. The 9 situations. Walk in the path defined by rule and accommodate yourself to the enemy until you can fight a decisive battle.
You'll be baptized.
At first, then, exhibit the coyness of a maiden until the enemy gives you an opening. Afterward, emulate the rapidity of a running hare, and it will be too late for the enemy to oppose you. The Don recovers from his wounds, rises from his deathbed, and calls a meeting with the heads of New York's 5 families at a bank that he owns unofficially. The Don wants a truce with Talia. They have both lost sons, and now all the Don wants is for Michael to return to America safely.
But I'm a superstitious man.
Because the Don knows that his enemies have spies in Sicily sniffing for Michael, so in this meeting, the Don delivers his famous Iron Curtain speech and promises everyone that he won't be the one to break the truce. He then embraces Philip Talia, though not out of love, but to secure Michael's safe return to America. For the Don knows that he must humble himself, suffer insults and trespasses, even on his territories, until he can build himself and his family back up to full strength. Sun Tzu, from The Art of War, in Chapter 9, The Army on the March. Pass quickly over mountains and keep in the neighborhood of valleys. The Godfather, by Mario Puzo. Every man has but one destiny. In Sicily, Michael marries Apollonia. Enemy spies booby-trap his car with a bomb. To surprise Michael, Apollonia decides to drive the car from the gate to the house for Michael. But when she turns the key, and the car explodes, her death becomes Michael's death and rebirth into his father's world and seals his destiny to take over the Corleone Empire. His love for Apollonia is the only thing that could come between himself and complete devotion to his father. Her death and the poverty of his father's native land enables Michael to fully understand his father's determination to not be a puppet, dancing on someone else's strings. The Don has cleared the way for Michael to return to America, and Apollonia's death ensures that he will return to America to stand by his father against their enemies. Throughout this film, death and life are two sides of the same coin. Michael returns to America and to Kay. He looks less like the American Michael she once knew and more like his Sicilian father. In this scene, Kay is the America he strived to be a part of. And now, after experiencing the hypocrisy of America in the relationship between Virgil Sollozzo and Captain McCluskey, followed by the death of his Sicilian wife Apollonia, Michael's acceptance of his father's world and ideology makes him cold, and Kay feels disconnected from him. Where before he tried to become a part of her greater society and forsaking his father, joining the army and dating her, a non-Sicilian white woman, he now wants her to forsake her world for his world. And in this, Michael, though changed, still has yet to make peace with the fact that he cannot reconcile their worlds, his and Kay's, even though they are both rooted in violence, capitalism, and corruption. He as yet is unwilling to completely let go of the world he forsook in murdering the police captain and Sollozzo. Back then, he didn't understand his father as he understands him now. Kay's outlook on men like his father in her world and his new outlook on his father can never coexist. Amos chapter 3 and verse 3. Two cannot walk together unless they be in agreement. Mark chapter 6 and verse 24. Man cannot serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. Mark chapter 2 and verse 22. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the wine will burst. The skins and the wine is destroyed, and so are the skins. But new wine is for fresh wineskins. Two objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time, and the ideological rift between Kay and Michael culminates in her decision to abort his son in the sequel, a hypocritical rejection of his world, a world of ruthless killers hiding behind the facade of family, God, and values not unlike that of her own world. Kay's abortion in the sequel severs Michael from her world completely.
Michael, you are blind.
As I've demonstrated up to this point of my analysis, understanding Christian themes is key to understanding this film. The resurrection and the yin and yang relationship between life and death are cyclical in this movie. When Sonny was murdered, the Don rose from his deathbed. When Apollonia was murdered, Michael was figuratively reborn to embrace his family, father, heritage, and destiny. Now, we again see the Christian themes of life, death, and the resurrection when the Godfather dies while playing with his grandson in a garden. A fitting and perfect death, surrounded by life that is equivalent to the scene in which he is surrounded by life in the form of fruits and vegetables after being shot at the market earlier in the film. Also, as two objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time, the Godfather's death marks the birth of a new generation of leadership under his son Michael. Sun Tzu's Art of War, Chapter 4, Tactics. The good fighters of old first put themselves beyond the possibility of defeat and then waited for an opportunity of defeating the enemy. Also, Chapter 6, Weak Points and Strong. All men can see the individual tactics necessary to conquer, but almost no one can see the strategy out of which total victory is evolved. Michael attends the baptism of his grandson as his soldiers kill off the heads of the other 5 New York families. Once again, we see the symbiotic relationship of life and death as Michael's godson is baptized and the heads of the 5 New York families are executed simultaneously. And after all of the smoke settles and his grandson is baptized, the old Michael is officially dead and the new Michael emerges in the fullness of glory as the undisputed Don of Dons, the spiritual reincarnation of his father Vito Corleone. By pretending to be weak, closing all the family's New York businesses and moving everything out to Las Vegas, Michael and his family were underestimated and their enemies became arrogant and let their own guard down, as the Bible says in the book of Proverbs in chapter 16 and verse 18. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before fall.
The Corleone family don't even have that kind of muscle anymore.
Matthew 13 verses 38 through 41. The field is the world, the good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity. Michael settles all family business in New York by punishing the traitors in the family first. Carlo Rizzi, Connie Corleone's husband, who had Sonny killed. Then Tessio, the Godfather's own capo regime or lieutenant.
Don't make it was only business.
Who had also, like Carlo Rizzi, sold out to Borzini. The family accounts in New York are all settled now, and again we see the cycle of life and death as Michael takes the empire his father created in New York City to Las Vegas, Nevada, where the seeds of the family's slow disintegration begin to take root. To appease Kay, Michael denies any involvement in the execution of New York's 5 families, but when she sees him through an open door having his hand kissed by each of his bodyguards, he reminds her, according to Mario Puzo's novel, of a statue of a Roman emperor having his hand kissed with the power of life and death over those who serve him. Seeing the proud attitude of his body and expression of his face in that open door, Kay realizes that Michael had lied to her. He had ordered the execution of New York's 5 families. Here's a few things you may or may not know about The Godfather. Did you know that Paramount Studios paid Mario Puzo only $12,500 for his 1969 novel? He accepted this sum in order to pay off $10,000 in gambling debts. Did you know that Paramount wanted Sergio Leone to direct the film and that he turned it down to direct his own gangster film, 1984's Once Upon a Time in America? Did you know that the studio threatened Coppola to make The Godfather more exciting in order to reach a wider audience? Did you know that Paramount went after Laurence Olivier, Ernest Borgnine, Anthony Quinn, George C. Scott, and Orson Welles to play Don Corleone? Mario Puzo and Coppola pushed for Marlon Brando to get the part, but the studio was against Brando because of the poor performances of his recent films and his short temper. Did you know that Robert De Niro was originally cast to play Sonny but quit? Did you know that Burt Reynolds and Jack Nicholson were offered the chance to play Michael Corleone? Reynolds turned the role down after Brando threatened to quit if he didn't. Jack Nicholson turned down the role because he felt that the role should go to an Italian American. Did you know that Marlon Brando refused to accept his Oscar for Best Actor to protest the depiction of American Indians in Hollywood and television? So again, thanks for watching, and let me know what you think in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to The Godfather of Cinema for more movie reviews. Until next time.